Hello, everybody, and welcome in on this Monday morning. Hopefully, you had a great 4th of July weekend. I know for a lot of people, it's a bit of a struggle getting back into the grind today, but hey, that's what Mondays are made for, I guess. At least that's what they say. Brooks Baptiste here checking in from the First Alert Desk. Do want to get you caught up on some of those stories that are making headlines at this hour. One of the big stories that we've been on top of is a Canton family that had to spend most of their weekend in the hospital after they had a boat explosion on a North Georgia lake, leaving many of them with severe burns. Just a terrible story here, and it's one that Atlanta News' first Sarah Hammond has been staying on top of now for quite some time. She has more from Grady Memorial Hospital, but the big question right now is still, how did something like this happen?
How this happened is what this family is still trying to figure out, but Matthew Miller says right now their focus is on their 3 boys who were badly burned when this boat exploded. This happened Friday afternoon on Lake Nottely in Union County. Everyone made it off the boat alive, which Miller says is the most important thing. His youngest suffered burns to both of his legs, the oldest on his legs, arms, and back, and his middle son is currently sedated because of the severity of his burns. Miller said while they were out tubing, they had to refuel, so he idled in, shut off the engine, and turned the blower fans on. They powered back up with no problems, and he says they circled back to pick up some trash out of the water, and that is when the boat went up in flames.
Instant fire, loud noise. I look over to where the explosion came from, which was more towards the back behind me. That's where my 2 older boys were sitting, and it looked like they got thrown up and then into the engine bay lower area of the boat, and they were, screaming. Everybody was screaming. Everybody was on fire.
And another boat exploded over the weekend, this one at Lake Lanier, which sent 7 people to the hospital. The cause of that explosion is still under investigation. At Grady Memorial Hospital, Sarah Hammond for Atlanta News First.
Yeah, just a terrible situation there. Of course, the 4th of July is supposed to be a weekend of celebrating and whatnot, but it's so unfortunate that it turned into people getting injured. But this is why officials are always saying that there are a couple of things that you want to do whenever you're out there on the water. One of which, you want to make sure that boat is getting routine maintenance. That should be happening every year. This is according to officials. And then also they say don't wait until something happens. When you notice something is going wrong, you want to call for help immediately in hopes to avoid anything like what we saw at Lake Lanier and at several lakes, I should say, in North Georgia over the weekend. Also, the 4th of July celebrations turned violent in several places across the metro. At least 5 people were shot over the weekend at those celebrations alone. Atlanta News First reporter Niamani Watson has more on where those investigations stand across the metro.
Chapel Hill Park in Decatur taped off Saturday night after DeKalb County police say a shooting left a 19-year-old in critical condition. Neighbors nearby say they thought the gunshots were fireworks at first.
Then just started hearing a barrage of, gunshots, and I saw people running to my yard, my neighbor's yard.
Police say 2 other women were injured but took themselves to the hospital. They're expected to be okay. In LaGrange, police say a man was shot at an apartment complex pool party.
I was scared.
At least 2 shootings happened on Friday, the July 4th holiday. At the Commons apartment complex in northwest Atlanta, crime scene tape surrounded deflated bounce houses and water bottles were scattered on the ground. Atlanta police say 2 women were shot. Neighbors tell us an Independence Day celebration was going on at the time.
I want everybody to have a good time, and I ain't got to worry about that kid getting shot or getting killed.
In Mableton, a man was shot around 6 p.m. Friday night on Concepts 21 Circle. Cobb County police say he was taken to the hospital where he later died. Neighbors say people should feel safe, especially during a holiday weekend, urging a stop to gun violence.
So it just has to stop. Just too much violence in the city.
We got to do better, man, as a community, as a people.
Niamani Watson, Atlanta News First.
Yeah, so unfortunate when things turn violent over a holiday weekend like that. Of course, as we learn more about those investigations, we'll be sure to update you both on there and on the free Atlanta News First app. Well, this morning, also keeping a watch on this, the first trial for the Stop Cop City protest is set to begin. It should be underway at this moment, and that is where we find Atlanta News First Blake Devine. He has more on what's going to happen, because one of the big questions this morning is how are they going to try so many people when we're talking about 61 defendants that are facing racketeering charges.
This could be the largest racketeering case in U.S. history this morning. Ayla King will take the stand as the first defendant in this trial for the Cop City protests. Now, there are 61 different individuals who have been charged in this Georgia RICO law, accusing these protesters of using arson, vandalism, and violent tactics to disrupt the construction of Atlanta's police training center. Some police cars and construction equipment were set on fire. In 2023, a protester was shot and killed by Georgia state troopers near the training center site. Protesters argue they didn't do anything illegal, saying these charges go too far.
They have turned me into the criminal. They have turned my 60 co-defendants into criminals.
This case is extremely complex. 61 co-defendants, multiple allegations across multiple years.
If convicted, these protesters could face up to 20 years in prison. Today's hearing will take place at 9:30, and we will be in the courtroom. Reporting from the Fulton County Courthouse, Blake Devine, Atlanta News First.
All right, let's take it live outside on this Monday morning. You know what? When I look at this live picture of the city, I say it's going to be a great week. But then you got people like First Alert meteorologist Rodney Harris who's going to come over here with a little bit of bad news. Hopefully not too bad, though. But, Rodney, there are some changes to the forecast that people need to know about.
There are some changes, Brooks, and I'll say this. I mean, you're right. Based off of what we're looking at right now, it's a phenomenal start to your day. But two changes happening this week, Brooks. The heat. So it was hot over the holiday weekend, but we didn't have as much moisture as we would typically have this time of year. So it actually felt fairly comfortable, even though it was hot. That's over. So starting today, that moisture is back. So you're going to feel that heat today with the heat index temperature near 100 degrees this afternoon. That's problem number one. Problem number two will be the rain. So we also enjoyed a holiday weekend that did not include any rain. At least most of us didn't see any rain. But that'll change too. With the moisture back, we're going to introduce at least a slight chance of storms just about every day this week. And those rain chances are going to gradually increase, Brooks, as we take you toward the end of the week. And that will end with some first alerts for Friday and Saturday. So that'll be the story this week as we get everything together. Let's talk about those heat index temperatures first. So here is the heat index for today. This morning, it's not that big of a deal, thankfully, but that will change later on this afternoon. So we will see those heat index temperatures eventually get up to pretty close to 100 degrees. There's that hour-by-hour forecast. At 9 a.m., we're at 95. That's what it feels like on your skin at 9 a.m., all right? So that's because of that moisture. Remember, whenever there's a lot of moisture in the air, it prevents your body from being able to cool off, which is why it feels hotter on your skin. At 3 o'clock, feeling like 99 in Atlanta, and I'll tell you that if you're in East Georgia, it'll feel like 100 degrees. And even tonight at like 9 o'clock, if you're headed out to dinner or you're doing anything tonight on this Monday, by 9 o'clock, it's still feeling like 89 degrees. So that's story number one. And the heat index temperature each afternoon around 3 or 4 o'clock will be around 100 to 105 every day this week. So watch out for that. That'll be our first issue. Here's a look at the forecast model for today. So we're really good right now. There's no issues. It won't rain this morning. The first part of your afternoon will be fine. But with the moisture slowly starting to increase, we will see some isolated storms later on this afternoon. So as you're driving home from work, this is a pattern that we were in a couple of weeks ago, and it seemed like it rained like every single day. That's what we're going to deal with today. We're back into that pattern, unfortunately. So even though the coverage of rain is low at 20%, our models are showing this activity right over Metro Atlanta. So rain and lightning will be possible as you're driving home from work. Keep that in mind if you have any plans. And then that chance for isolated storms will continue up until about sunset. Once we lose daytime heating after 9 o'clock, the chance of rain will go down. But as you're driving home from work, don't let that catch you off guard. So here is the 7-day forecast, and you'll see what I mean when I say those rain chances gradually increase. They're really about 20 or 30% initially, but by Thursday and Friday, the coverage of showers and storms will go up to at least 50%. So the cover, we're going to basically see a lot more showers and storms on Thursday and Friday compared to what you'll see the first half of the week, and that's why the first alert is in place at the end of the week. So it's important to know that there's a chance of rain every day this week, but we'll simply see more storms on Thursday and Friday, accounting for those first alerts. One thing that'll happen with the extra rain chances or the higher rain chances is slightly lower temperatures on Thursday and Friday. So instead of like the mid-upper 90s that we'll see today, by the end of the week, we'll drop into the low 90s, which will still be hot and humid. And then this weekend, the moisture levels will go down just a little bit, so we'll lower the rain chances back down to 30%. So that's the story this week. Again, the 4th of July weekend was phenomenal for most of you. We did actually have a flash flood warning up in the mountains on Friday, but for the most part, it was dry. But with the moisture back starting today, just watch out for that heat. It'll be hot and humid, and there's going to be a difference in how it feels for you. It's not just hot, but that humidity is back today. So you're going to sweat a lot more if you're going to be outdoors in the afternoon. So try to drink a lot of water, stay in the shade if you can, and then just isolated storms back in your forecast. Driving home from work just about every day this week with higher coverage on Friday and Saturday. So we'll certainly keep you up to date on that in our First Alert weather app. That's what we're looking at here, closer to home. A pretty typical summertime forecast out there in North Georgia. We'll keep you up to date on today's storms, even though today is not a First Alert that will be possible for you, again, as you're driving home from work. So First Alert meteorologist Ella Dorsey, she's working on an updated forecast for you on Atlanta News First at noon. Of course, you can always find your forecast here and always in our First Alert weather app. We hope that you're having a great start to your week, and until next time, we'll see you soon.